day one, the problem was, number one, I wanted simplification, and I wanted reduction of levies like income tax, rate of interest, and so on, to be reduced, because I wanted demand to grow. I knew that what the UPA had left us was with a demand shortage. So what I'm saying today is that every year the rate of growth has declined. And the last quarter before COVID, which is January to March end, the lockdown was only declared on 25th of March. So practically March was over. So that period, you see a growth rate which is even lower than what Jawaharlal Nehru produced of 3.5%. It is 3.1%. And before that, it was 4.42%. Before that, it was 6%. So what do you have? Demonetization hit the demand. Then this GST. Now you see there's chaos on GST today.
It's another Sunday, and we are back on the Virat Hindustan Sangam social media channels of YouTube, Twitter, Periscope, Facebook, and Instagram, with Dr. Subramanian Swamy speaking to you on Gyan Ganga, words of wisdom. And as usual, today we have a very interesting topic. The topic is how to reset India's economy, the way forward. And for that, we have, along with Dr. Swamy, an important guest, that is Dr. M.R. Venkatesh.
Namaskaram.
Welcome, Mr. Venkatesh. As most of our viewers are aware, that he is a regular contributor to various TV channels every day in the evening in India, and people enjoy his comments and expert advice on numerous matters. At present, Dr. M.R. Venkatesh is a leading advocate on economic and criminal laws, and he is very sought after lawyer for PMLA, FEMA, income tax, Benami laws, Black Money Act, customs, WTA, and related matters.
Sought after for fighting PMLA.
Yeah, fighting, not to the other way around. Originally, Mr. M.R. Venkatesh was a chartered accountant and was doing a practice for the last 25 years. But now, recently, he has taken to and become a lawyer and appearing on all these matters. He is just now obtained a doctoral thesis, completed his doctoral thesis with the Shastra University. And as I mentioned, since 2018, he is a practicing lawyer. He has written numerous books on various subjects. One was in 2000, it started in 2001, a handbook on anti-dumping, which was released by the then Prime Minister. Then there was a monograph on capital convertibility, published in 2006. Then a monograph on inflation, which was published in 2007. Then he published another paper, Global Imbalances and the Impending Dollar Crisis, in 2007. Sensex and Sentiments, Failure of the Indian Financial Sentinel, was published in 2011. And then in the 2013, just before the general election, he published a book known as Dr. Manmohan Singh, A Decade of Decay. So this is what Dr. M.R. Venkatesh is. We welcome him to our show. He has appeared on our show earlier, and he has been very active, giving a lot of gyan to our viewers. As you know, the program is Gyan Ganga and Words of Wisdom. We also thank our viewers spread over 122 countries across the globe for every Sunday watching this program and for lakhs of viewers, especially now the younger generation has, for the last 2-3 weeks, has been flocking to our program, and this shows the growing popularity of Dr. Subramanian Swamy and the Virat Hindustan Sangam, and it gives a lot of uncomfortable positions to a lot of people who are against our ideology and keep spreading a lot of disinformation about our organization and Dr. Swamy. But as the dog barks at the caravan moves on. So VHS, with its Gyan Ganga and words of wisdom, moves on. And I would now request my colleague, Professor Arvind Chaturvedi, to make some introductory remarks. I also thank my colleague Ramesh Swamy for being a co-host with this program, and our technical team led by Ashish Shetty, Vishal Mehta, Mr. Ishwar Iyer, Mr. Swaminathan, then Tejas and Rakesh Gadgi from Bangalore for their background support and technical support for putting this program together. Professor Arvind Chaturvedi.
नमस्कार डॉक्टर स्वामी, नमस्कार एमआर वेंकटेश।
नमस्कार सर। नमस्कार सर।
डॉक्टर स्वामी, इसके पहले कि आप अर्थव्यवस्था का आज का जो हमारा विषय है उसको उठाएं, मैं आपका ध्यान एक और ताजा मामले की तरफ ले जाना चाहता हूं जो आपने कई सप्ताहों से उठाया है। वो है सुशांत सिंह राजपूत के मर्डर का मामला। आप पहले व्यक्ति थे जिसने इस विषय को एक तरह से गति प्रदान की और लोगों को बताया कि यह आत्महत्या नहीं हो सकती और इसमें जरूर कोई ना कोई साजिश है। जब और दूसरे लोगों ने भी इस मामले को उठाया तो आपने इसमें एक नया विषय जोड़ा। वो था कि आपने कहा कि इस विषय में ड्रग का कनेक्शन है, इस घटना में कोई ना कोई ड्रग का कनेक्शन है। कुछ लोगों ने भौएं अपनी सिकोड़ी और तमाम तरह के सवाल उठाए कि डॉक्टर स्वामी ने नया एंगल एक छेड़ दिया है, लेकिन समय बताया है, समय ने सिद्ध किया है कि समय के साथ साथ जब नारकोटिक्स कंट्रोल ब्यूरो ने ये जानकारी अपने हाथ में ली और जांच शुरू की तो जो भी आपने कहा था वो सारा के सारा ड्रग का कनेक्शन सामने आ रहा है। ड्रग पैडलर जो थे उसमें 2 लोगों को गिरफ्तार किया जा चुका है और बहुत ही जल्दी हमें लगता है कि इसमें और जो लोग लिप्त हैं उनकी गिरफ्तारी होगी और एक बहुत बड़े मामले का भंडाफोड़ होगा जो ड्रग से जुड़ा हुआ है। ड्रग का जो सिंडिकेट मुंबई में चलता है और जो बॉलीवुड में चलता है उसकी तरफ आपने इशारा किया है और एक पूरी तरह से फिल्म इंडस्ट्री को स्वच्छ करने का जो मामला है ये आपने बीड़ा उठाया है। तो इसके बारे में हमारे दर्शकों को कुछ बताएं इसके पहले कि हम अर्थव्यवस्था पे एमआर वेंकटेश के साथ जाएं।
हाँ, इतना अभी तक तो हम गए हैं, जिस रास्ते पर गए हैं उसमें यानी एक हमारी सरकार ने भी, केंद्र सरकार ने भी होशियारी की कि उन्होंने जो यानी इंटेलिजेंस ब्यूरो के जरिए हम लोगों को पता था कि इसमें ड्रग मामला भी जुड़ा हुआ है और बॉलीवुड में सारी चीज़ों में ड्रग मामला जुड़ा हुआ है। बहुत दिनों से बढ़ते गया, अभी वो फूटने की स्थिति में आ गई है। जैसे फुंसी फूटती है वैसे वो भी फूटने की स्थिति में आ गई है और इसीलिए मुझे पता था कि इनकी अंत करने के लिए, सुशांत के लिए ड्रग में ऐसा यानी उसको दिया जाए, उसके जाने बिना कौन सा डोसेज है, कौन से किस प्रकार की है, उससे उसकी जो मंशा में जो फर्क पड़ती है और वो अपना सारा जो दिशा है दिशाहीन हो जाते हैं। ये सारी चीज़ों के लिए उस विषकन्या जो है रिया चक्रवर्ती वो उसको थोपा गया। वो तो अप्रैल 2019 में आई थी और 8 जून 2020 में छोड़कर चले गई। उसके जो रहनुमा थे या संरक्षक शुद्ध हिंदी में कह सकते हैं, वो था महेश भट्ट, जिसका असली नाम अब है अशरफ भट्ट। वो यानी इस्लाम धर्म को स्वीकार कर लिया है और वो इसकी रहनुमा थे, इसके संरक्षक थे। और मैं समझता हूँ कि जो मूल उद्देश्य था वो था कि ये जो सुशांत है, जो स्वाधीन होते जा रहा है और बड़ी तेजी से, तीव्र गति से वो एक स्टार बन रहा है, और सारे जो नौजवान और युवा युवती हैं वो उसके पीछे पागल होकर भाग रहे हैं। इस प्रकार की परिस्थिति पैदा धीरे धीरे हुई। उसका एक और रोमांचक बात ये थी कि वो बहुत पढ़ा लिखा था और विज्ञान में उसकी बड़ी ज्ञान थी, और इसीलिए वो साधारण ऐसे ही कोई जो कॉलेज में फेल होते हैं लफंगे लोग, वो जाकर सिनेमा में जुड़ते हैं बाद में, क्योंकि वहाँ कोई पढ़ाई की जरूरत नहीं है, सिर्फ नाटक करने की जरूरत है। तो इस एक विभिन्न प्रकार से एक व्यक्ति, और उसमें वो जो स्वाधीन चल रहा है, ये खतरनाक इस जो एक गुटबाजी बनी है खान ब्रदर्स की और अरशद भट्ट या महेश भट्ट जिस नाम से वो जाने जाते हैं सिनेमा में, उसमें आखिर में सारा आरोप और जो उंगली है वो उनके तरफ जाएगी। और इसमें जो रिया का जो पूछताछ में वो फिर हो सकता है कि हौसला टूट कर वो सारी बातें बता दे, जैसे उसके भाई ने बता दी। और उसके बाद मैं समझता हूँ जो बड़ा साजिश पर हमें जाना है। और वैसे 65 दिन के लिए बॉम्बे पुलिस ने कुछ नहीं किया, और आज घबरा कर वो रिया के लिए पुलिस सिक्योरिटी दे रहे हैं, जैसे वो जेड सिक्योरिटी में है। जो दूसरे के लिए खतरा है वो उसके लिए सुरक्षा के लिए पुलिस दे रहे हैं। उससे पता लग गया है कि पुलिस भी कहीं ना कहीं इसमें उनका हिस्सा है, उनका भाग है। और तो आज मैं समझता हूँ कि एक पुनरुत्थान करने के लिए हमें एक पहला कदम हुआ है। और मैं इस राय का शुरू से था कि 65 दिन होने के बाद हम सिर्फ सीबीआई को लगाएंगे तो पर्याप्त नहीं है। इसमें जो वित्तीय मामला है, जो वित्तीय भ्रष्टाचार है, उसके लिए एनफोर्समेंट डायरेक्ट भी लाना चाहिए। और ड्रग्स के बिना तो कुछ हो ही नहीं सकता है। मुंबई में आप जानते हैं कि मेरा परिचय बम्बई से कितना गहरा है। मैं 2 बार वहां से लोकसभा भी जीता हूँ, और जगदीश शेट्टी जैसे उन्होंने खूब संगठन जमा के रखा है बम्बई में कोने कोने में हमारे लोग हैं। विराट हिंदुस्तान संगम के लोग हैं बीजेपी के अतिरिक्त। तो इसलिए आज मैं समझता हूँ बहुत बड़ा कदम हुआ है। उनकी 6 बजे से ज्यादा बढ़ गई पूछताछ, तो इसीलिए उनको गिरफ्तार आज नहीं किया जाया है। मुझे आश्चर्य नहीं होगा कि कल वो गिरफ्तार होगी, और फिर उसके बाद कस्टोडियल इंटरोगेशन के लिए वो मांगेंगे।
लेकिन पूरा श्रेय आपको जाता है, क्योंकि आपने ही इस मुद्दे को पहले उठाया था।
नहीं, मैं तो पहले दिन ही जब जुलाई 9 को मैंने सार्वजनिक किया कि मैं इस पर दिलचस्पी लूंगा, उस समय तो ये पूरा ठंडा हो गया था। जैसे वो पहले वो जो बाबी जो थी, वो फिल्म एक्ट्रेस, वो और कई नहीं, मैं तो समझता हूँ कि महीने में एक हत्या होती थी बॉलीवुड में। अब उस समय मुझे लगा कि अब ये सिनेमा का सवाल नहीं है, और तो वैसे भी आप जानते हैं मैं सिनेमा देखता ही नहीं हूँ। कोई डॉक्यूमेंट्री है तो मैं वो भी मैं यूट्यूब में देख लेता हूँ। तो मुझे लगा ये अब राष्ट्र का सवाल है। और बॉम्बे बहुत महत्वपूर्ण शहर है, वहाँ वित्तीय राजधानी है, वहाँ कला के भी है, वहाँ वो एक कैपिटल भी है, और इसीलिए ये सारे जुड़कर उसमें पुलिस भी जुड़ा हुआ, ये एक बहुत भयंकर गुटबाजी बन गई थी। उसको तोड़ने के लिए ये आवश्यकता, और मैं समझता हूँ कि हम बहुत आगे बढ़े हैं, और जब ये सारा प्रोसिक्यूशन चलेगी तब और भी बातें निकलेगी, और कई और लोग अपने, और सिनेमा वर्ल्ड में किसी की रीढ़ की हड्डी ज़्यादा मजबूत नहीं होती, तो जैसे वो देखेंगे कि हम हमें अंदर जा सकते हैं तो प्ली बार्गेनिंग, यानी समझौता ये सब आएगी। तो मैं समझता हूँ कि आज एक सूर्य उदय हो रहा है मुंबई में, ऐसा हमें लगता है।
Thank you, Dr. Swamy. So coming to today's topic, how to reset India's economy, the way forward. We have expert MRB, as we all know as MRB.
Yes.
So let's begin with you, Dr. Swamy, your few words of introduction on this, and then maybe MRB can jump and give his intro, and both of you can debate on the subject.
No, he's our guest, so we'll ask him questions.
Okay.
He has to answer.
Okay.
First of all, first question I'd like to ask him is, you have seen now what I had been saying from 2015, that the growth rate is decelerating, and in another, by the time 5 years are over, which is still to be over, but we're in bad shape. Now, the fourth quarter of 2019-20, which is January 1 to March 31st. We now find that was pre-corona, because even the lockdown was started only on 25th March. So practically the whole of March was, had no restrictions due to corona. So January, February, March, they form the fourth quarter of the financial year 2019-2020. And there, the growth rate is just 3%, 3.1%. This is not my estimate. It is the estimate of this Ministry of Finance, which has brought on the 30th of June a publication saying macroeconomic data of the year 2019-2020. In that, they have shown that the 2019-2020 financial year, the growth rate had come down to 4.2%, and the fourth quarter was only 3.1%. Then came the lockdown and the corona restrictions and so on. And now I had been saying 25% minus it will be, but it's turned out to be what, 29.4% minus?
23.9.
Okay, so a little short of 25.
Yes.
And my view is that when you take the year as a whole, in next year, next March 31st, you will find that this financial year would be somewhere close to 30-35%. That's a huge drop, but that is in GDP only. So I'd like you to know, I'd like to know from you, what is your analysis? What about the breakdowns? What is the situation in unemployment? What is the situation in whether a particular class, the poorer classes, have been hit harder? What is the difference between the rural and urban situation? What is the difference between the slums of a city and the rich parts of the city? I would like your prognosis as to where we are heading and how long do you think it will take to turn it around?
Doctor, I will start with the last quarter of the previous financial year, which you very rightly pointed out. That is the best benchmark we have for a normal time, the latest benchmark for the normal time.
Yes.
Now, let me go back to the budget of 2019, which was presented in the parliament after the elections in July 2019. There, at that time, the Honorable Finance Minister estimated a fiscal deficit of 3.3% for the financial year 1920. Fair enough. That was a reasonable number. Then she comes back on 1st February 2020, and this time 305 days of the year has elapsed, and she has got just 60 days more. and she makes a revised estimate of the budget numbers, and she tells to the parliament, I will end this year with a fiscal deficit of 3.8%. I am overshooting the target by 0.5%, but that's well within the FRBM target. Now, the June report, which you very rightly alluded to, makes a very interesting but very, very serious comment that the fiscal deficit of the country for the year 1920, we ended up with a fiscal deficit of 4.6%. Meaning, even as late as February 1, 2020, we could not comprehend what was the fiscal deficit that we are likely to end on 31st March. Now, there is an interesting paragraph 28. I would like to read it for the benefit of the viewers, because some of the viewers think that we are filibustering, or we have got certain grudge or certain personal animosity with powers that be. So they come about and slander or abuse us. So there is something that we have to read from the Finance Ministry's own document to tell what exactly is the position. Para 28, I quote, COVID-19 has also impacted government fiscal revenues via its detrimental impact on both income and production side of the national accounts. Now, how did COVID come and impact 2019-20? But for 1 week, the last week of 2019-20, we don't know. No. And then it adds, as per provisional accounts, data of central government finances for 1920, the fiscal deficit for 1920 provisional account stood at 9.4 lakh crores, which is 4.6% of GDP. 0.8 percentage points higher than the revised estimates. This is attributable mainly to shortfall in revenue collection. So obviously, the engine had started spluttering and virtually come to a halt by the last week of February, March, and that was palpable. Now, from that, see, the problem is not that it stopped. The problem is that the inability to comprehend that it has stopped. So it is not the question that the doctor doesn't know the diagnosis. The doctor doesn't know what is to be done with various type of diagnosis that he has to do. Not only is he unable to write a prescription, he doesn't know what is the diagnosis that is to be carried out. Now let me give. So what happens that today they pick up a random statistic, like suddenly taking a month of sales of motorbikes or number of punctures being repaired in the puncture shop of bicycles. And then say, oh, look, there is a V-shaped recovery. V-shaped recovery cannot be done on a daily basis or a weekly basis. You have to have a certain amount of data that comes in over 2 or 3 months. And you agreed, doctor, that we were in a lockdown mode substantially during the first quarter of this fiscal. And the second quarter of this fiscal, we are still in some sort of lockdown mode. So all these statistics are at best aberrations. So you can't draw any meaningful conclusions out of it. So my humble suggestion is that there is a painting, a static painting in the North Block, which shows some sort of green shoots. And every day morning, that painting is being looked at by the mandarins in North Block and say, look, there is a green shoot out there. The green shoot is nothing but a painting, and better they keep quiet for 6 months till 31st March. Let 2 quarters roll out when things do subside, and then start making meaningful conclusions out of data. Data today is so dispersed and so irrelevant and so random that we cannot draw any meaningful conclusion. This is my humble submission on the data point. But the larger issue is that there is a failure to comprehend, much less to mend. So that is the bottom line I would like to point out.
Well, this data question, I will tell you something which they have not disclosed. But I have friends in the Central Statistical Organization, and my father was, in fact, the founder of the Central Statistical Organization in 1950. And what I found is, and what I suspected, is that every year, when they make the national accounts for the year, they rely on a sample survey for MSMEs and small industries, for kirana shops, and so on, service sector. So on the basis of the National Sample Survey data for the year, they give an estimate of the net income generated by this sector.
Yes.
Now, in this 23 minus 23.9% or whatever, they have not included the MSMEs and the
Yes.
small industries, none of it, because they don't have data.
Data was not collected.
And they are the worst affected.
Yes.
Who
So-
walk on the streets of the road? These are the migrant workers. Where do they work? They work in MSMEs and small industries and shops and restaurant, roadside restaurants and so on. So if that had been done, in my opinion, it would have not been minus 23.9%, but it would have been minus 35%.
Yes. So this is a best case scenario.
Absolutely, by just excluding the biggest drop that is taken place. And that will continue because there is no policy. And so, second point I would like to draw your attention to is they do have what they call as a stimulus package of of 21 point something trillion rupees, correct? Lakh crores.
20 lakh crores.
20 plus added that was about 21.
Yes.
Now, what is the ailment in India? I want to know whether you agree with me. The economic ailment is that we have a major demand factor problem.
Yes.
This is a reason because of the stupidity of our tax system, which particularly during Jaitley's period was going haywire. The tax terror that was let loose by going and raiding people left, right, and center, and the effect of demonetization, which was wholly unprepared. All this created a demand shortage. So if you went to an automobile showroom, you'll find cars standing unsold. So of this 21 trillion rupees, I found only 1.2 trillion only for demand. Everything else is credit arrangement, loan thing, non-payment, this thing. These are all what they call as financial bookkeeping methods. So it's not even unlike in America where Trump is, Ramesh is here, he might confirm it, that everybody who was filing a certain amount of income tax and income tax return, that amount was directly deposited into their account.
Yes.
Not only that, Dr. Swamy, they're now talking about the second round for the same thing, because even continued with the crisis that we are facing, we're even talking about another round of incentives directly to the taxpayers.
That's right. Here is not like that. Here, because there is no proposal, it's all hidden. Green shoots. I mean, I've been looking for green shoots. The only thing I've been seeing is brown shoots, but so far no.
The painting, the classical painting.
Finally, they said the God is responsible. One anchor in the new TV studio asked me, "What do you say?" I said, "God in our Sanskrit language is Swami. I hope they are not thinking it and blaming me." You see, because I'm so critical. The fact is that we are turning it around, this so-called we business. I don't know which part of we are just now in.
Yes.
Going down. Yes. And then if you turn up, you can't return to the same point which you were 1.5 years ago.
Yes.
You have to get ahead. And otherwise the growth rates for the 5 years would be ridiculous. So I would like your views. Number one, on this stimulus package, what is it that they would have done better? And two, do you agree about this demand factor being the crucial thing and how we can service that demand factor? These two questions is what I would like to ask.
Doctor, if you look at, again, the benchmark quarter of the fourth quarter of 1920, by the time you had 2 or 3 sectors that were faltering. One was, of course, the aviation sector. One was, of course, the automobile sector. These were all faltering. And then the cascading effect was coming on steel, then on cement, and so on and so forth. That whole thing. Telecom is in a disaster because of policy matters. So each one was in a regulatory or in an economic or whatever mess that it was there.
Yes.
Now, on top of it, you had this COVID. So which virtually meant that people had to keep their, and it's basic economics that whenever people are petrified, they don't go and buy a car. They don't go on a holiday. They just try to shore up cash and try to say that whether tomorrow I will have to spend on my medical or my food or whatever stuff. I don't know about whether my employer is going to pay me for the next quarter, whether company is going to survive. So everybody is in a state of unsure, confusion. So in that, the demand has to generally pick up, and it is classical economics that the government has to step in and start spending so that it becomes the engine of growth. Now, the problem here is twofold. Now, just let me tell you that today, if you take a classical case, doctor, you would have come to Chennai, say if you drive from Punnamalli to the main city, Chennai, there is an expressway, which is the Madurai Expressway, started in 2006. Now, we are in 2020, it is not yet complete for a variety of reasons. Now, an expressway which is supposed to connect the port, Chennai port, to the outskirts of the city for 23 kilometers has not been completed for a variety of reasons. But this morning, somebody told me very interesting that they have not yet found the landing space near the port. So they have started the project without identifying where the project should land. And the Navy has to actually vacate a quarters. They have to demolish it and they have to give it. And this is going to take another 3 to 4 years. Now look at it. Who bears the interest cost of this? Okay. I know this project would have cost, say, 800 crores in, say, 2006. Today, with interest, it would be 3,800 crores. Now, if you're going to add toll, which is now going to service 3,500 crores of your project cost, this is going to become unviable. Meanwhile, the Madras port has collapsed, and there are 2 other ports, Katupalli and Ennore port, that have come in nearby, making this project itself redundant. So you see how we are managing this. I gave you one example. Unless we come out with quick fix solutions for our project, anybody, doctor, suppose you are my competitor company who is on a infrastructure, I think all that I have to do to dynamite your project is to go to the Green Tribunal and get a stay. And that's for taking. Now, unless we fix this, we are not going to fix the infrastructure. So the infrastructure itself is a big problem. And the third biggest problem in the infrastructure is PPP. Now, the PPP model has run its full course, and it has now seen that unless you have some sort of inbuilt regulatory mechanism for solving the issues, it is like a Mia-Bibi husband-wife relation. Unless there is going to be a daily arbitral system, we can't do it. But now coming to this is all what I'm saying is not releasing of the pent-up demand or not actually adding up to the demand. So if you expect MR Venkatesh to go and buy a car, forget it. The only way government has to start spending, and by which the trickle-down effect has to happen, that's how people like us are going to spend. Now, on the package, you wanted my comments. I would say, doctor, there has been, of this 3 lakh crores, which they gave it as a MSME or 20% top-up loan, that has fairly worked in some pockets. I must say that it has come out well in some pockets, but in some pockets it has not come. So it is also depending on whose balance sheet was bankable as of 29th February 2020. It was not like what Ramesh points out, that every Tom, Dick and Harry gets this top-up. This top-up is subject to an inbuilt understanding that your balance sheet is bankable. That means you were not in the brink, but you were much, much higher, and the bankers choose. It is not automatic. The third point, this will be shocking, and this is what one of my friends called me after seeing the promo of this program. Till date, his organization has listed, they are from Tirupur, and they have listed that 2,951 amendments has happened to the GST in the last 3 years. Now,
can you repeat that number, MRV? Can you repeat that number? What?
Oh, okay. I will tell you. It is 2,951, close to 3,000 amendments to GST.
Fine.
Okay, daily there. So the whole-time job of a promoter or an almost like that. So you can have some mind-boggling numbers: three per every, or 3.5 per working day. So something like that is happening. So we and our income tax, comes out with 150 amendments every year. So the whole-time job of every single entrepreneur is to do compliance, not do protection. So as now, it looks like we are facing a constitutional crisis where the center is refusing to pay the states on what is supposed to be the due under the GST, because it was calculated using the Excel and stating that 14% will be the compounding every year for the next 5 years will pay you, and it was done at 8% growth and 6% inflation. That was how that magic figure of 14% was arrived at. But now that the growth is neither 8%, neither is the inflation, even further bad, like the inflation is not at 6%. So what I would suggest, and I think this, using your program, Dr. Swamy, I would use you and urge you that probably if you think this suggestion is valid, you can write to the PM. For the next 1 year, don't collect GST from anybody who is actually selling goods. That would give cash flow to the firms who will actually get. So that is an incentive for me to sell cars. That will be incentive to sell motorbikes, cycles, tractors, cement, steel, so that the more I sell, the more I will take money from the people and keep it in my hand. That will help me to generate cash flow in my system and charge 7%.
Good suggestion.
Because I cannot go away, I cannot run away. I am. You have all my details. You have caught me by tough. You know everything about me. So if 1 year later, if I'm going to default, you can generally catch me as you do a tax defaulter or a tax cheat. But this 1 year, if GST is liberalized, after all, when central government can renege on its promise, how can a poor Annamalai and Sons or Gupta and Brothers, come up out and pay to the government? Now, as far as the government is concerned, as far as they to pay the state government, I think it is left to the wisdom of the GST Council to sit down and whether they have to borrow from RBI, which is flush with funds. RBI is flush with too much of money, and they can borrow it, and they can definitely give it, and that is an arrangement they can do. But to revive economy, I thought not collecting GST from anybody, GST holiday, meaning you are not saying that I'm giving a waive off, you are just giving a cash flow benefit at 7%. I think this will be a very good move forward because everybody is demanding this now.
Okay. Well, just taking a step forward now, you have selected one item that needs to be done.
Yes.
Can you give me 5 steps that we should take to generate demand in our country?
One was, of course, I said about front-loading the infrastructure project, which infrastructure pipeline, and concomitantly, either ways, we have now scant respect for FRBM targets and FRBM rules. We in fact suspend the FRBM. We can do away with it. The second one is, of course, the GST holiday or deferral, which we can do it for the next 1 year. The third one, Doctor, I would strongly urge, and I would definitely think about it in a very serious manner, is to bring just 2 slabs of income tax at this point in time and see whether we can phase it out. See, at this point in time, statistics suggest 1 to 1.5% of our population are paying income tax. And it is time that we start thinking about doing away with income tax for this 1.5%, which will be a major stimulus for the economy.
So abolish it.
Doctor, I wish you were the finance minister. Unfortunately, we don't have that privilege today. But I would suggest that the best way forward is to make income tax redundant over a period of time, the next 3 years. And I think Professor Vaidyanathan has also suggested this. Make it 15 lakhs exemption, 15 to 25 lakh have 10%, and about 25 lakh have 20%, so that you weed it away over a period of time. The fourth one.
No, just one amendment, you see. I have talked to many people about this income tax matter. They say the issue is not how much we have to pay. The issue is the harassment of paperwork and the fact that these income tax are, wild men from Borneo, and they They pounce on us. They make even honest people, to be crooks. So therefore, we just want to know that tomorrow nobody is going to come and knock on my door. Therefore, they want a complete abolition.
Yes.
That's neat. Whereas if you start doing the same thing, then again the paperwork, everything continues. So at least I think on this issue, you should yield to my point of view that there is no question of reducing and all that. Just clean, abolish income tax.
Doctor, I absolutely yield to you, no doubt about it. And you also recommended or suggested in various of your programs, lectures, and your book about alternative ways of raising revenue to compensate for the abolition of income tax. I am with you on this, and perfectly. Ideally, since I have also given up my chartered accountancy practice, it doesn't hurt me also personally if income tax is abolished. So I have no vested interest either. But I thought in this country, I'm only reminded of what P.V. Narasimha Rao says in one interview. In this country, there can be no abrupt, U-turns. He says you have to take gradual U-turns, and only taking his wisdom.
You're the man who should say that. He abolished overnight.
Yes, industrial licensing. Yes, you overnight abolished controller of capitals. He virtually did away with monopolies in the MRTP Act. Yeah. I'm fully aware. And doctor, there was one thing interesting about it. I passed my CA with all those laws. And the day I become a CA, I became redundant because it was an unformed hard disk. I had to relearn the whole laws all over again because he had abolished the whole thing. But I'm saying that if it can, I was only suggesting a gradual approach, and this approach I think may be the best way. I concede to that logic that you have to do a big bang reforms. Yes,
you prefer halal to jhatka.
Yes. I'm more secular than you are, doctor.
Ramesh wants to say something.
Yes.
Yeah, so basically on the income tax, just one small point. India spends 47 paise to collect 1 rupee of income tax.
That may not be entirely true, Ramesh. That statistics is slightly fudged. It may not be that way around. It is because, again, it depends on what is your definition of income tax. Whether it's only the personal income tax, because income tax includes also corporate income tax, which today is a slightly big number. And so this 47 paise may not be the exact one, because government total budget of employees, including defense budget, is around 6 lakh crores. And defense, your income tax is around 6 lakh crores on personal side. So you can't have 50% of it only to income tax employees. I'm very sure that statistics is a slightly misleading one.
Yeah, somebody was publishing it, so I just thought,
I know this goes on in some circles also. It may not be that.
What about as far as corporate tax is concerned? You tell companies, if you build houses for your employees, it's just tax deductible. If you build schools for your employees' children, that's tax deductible. If you have buses go and pick up from their houses the employees, ensure they're coming through metros and taxis and so on, then also that expense is tax deductible. Don't you think that it will first do part of your work as well as give relief to the corporate sector?
That would be a very ideal way. But in India, what is the problem? I tell you, we calculate the books as per the Companies Act, and then we have to calculate the income as per Income Tax Act, which is substantially different from the income as per books. So there is a huge amount of deductions and exemptions and restrictions. And notwithstanding this, you cannot have your income being less than 30% of your book profits, which subjects you to a minimum alternative tax. Suppose your book profit is 100 rupees and you do a smart tax planning as what you suggested, like buildings and for your employees and carry them by buses, and you expend on a variety of things. Even then, your expenditure cannot exceed 70 rupees more as per your income tax. And then you cannot say that I won't pay tax. You have to pay tax minimum for 30 rupees. So this is a minimum alternative tax that we have. But what is happening, the whole of litigation is on how do we reduce, whether we have actually reduced this from 100 to 70. Because 30 is a given in any circumstances. Everybody has to pay tax on this 30 rupees. Sir, my suggestion is make alternative book profit tax as the main tax. This is only one section, 115 JB, and make this as only the alternative tax. Pay, if suppose Reliance declares 100 crores profits into 20%, that will be your tax. Simple. So everybody knows 20% is the tax, 100 crores is my profit, pay 20 crores, be done with it, and 80 crores is your take home, you do whatever. You know, it will simplify, it will put 90% of the tax lawyers out of business. Okay, this can be done simply. And believe me, minimum alternative tax is the biggest source of revenue for the corporate tax. But this can be simplified. But there will be, I'm sure by the time we finish the program, just a minute, Ramesh, this is a very important point. Delhi will be on fire, Yamuna will be on fire, because this will make many of us redundant. So that lobby, and sir, when I started my +2, I heard late Palkiwala speak in Chennai. He said the complexity in income tax is a goldmine for practicing chartered accountants and lawyers.
Correct.
And that rings in my ears even today. 35 years later, that rings in my ears as if he spoke in front of me just now. And that tells the sorry state of affairs. Sir, I have to finish 2 more points, which you said, give me 5 points. I've finished 3. I'll just take 2 more.
That's exactly what I wanted to bring in. That's anyway, go ahead.
Okay. 2 more points. Sir, the state level reforms are not happening.
Yeah.
The problem with us is Prime Minister talks about Atmanirbhar, Prime Minister talks about Make in India, toys, so many things that he talks about. But there is no follow-up at the state. For instance, let me take Tamil Nadu, for instance. Tamil Nadu would not have the fire in terms of improving its ease of doing business. Tamil Nadu does not want any great fight. Say when Tuticorin we had a sterilite copper smelting plant getting closed. Tamil Nadu thinks that is a problem for Narendra Modi to be tackled, and that is a problem for India's Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal to tackle with China. There has nothing to do with Tamil Nadu's growth. Today, when the Niti Aayog is releasing the ranking index of various states, Tamil Nadu is not figuring in the first 10. Now, a big manufacturing state doesn't figure in the top 10. It's a sorry state of affairs.
Yes, sure.
So the reforms, unfortunately, are not taken by the state level. And that is, again, a very worrisome. Last but not the least, judiciary and administrative reforms. Unless we do massive administrative and judicial reforms. For example, I will ask you, sorry sir, you should not ask a teacher a question, but let me ask a question. What would be the heavenly contribution of, say, the steel ministry in the last 20 years?
Yeah.
What would it be, say, for labor ministry?
Yeah.
Why should we have a labor ministry? In the sense when we can do away with it and so probably merge it with Home Ministry with a joint secretary to look into it, or a Commerce Ministry to look into it. I don't understand. We have ministries after ministry. It's textile. Now, textile, we are beaten black and blue by Bangladesh.
Yes.
And for getting, now let us assume we get beaten black and blue in cricket by Bangladesh. People would have asked Ravi Shastri's head. People have said Kohli must resign. Yeah. But nobody says anything about it to, say, the textile minister or labor minister or anything. So the reforms that has to happen are 2 levels. One is at the central level in terms of all these ministries getting closed, and there are, I'm told, there are 11 export promotion council for textiles. The silk board and this board and that board. Each one a fiefdom of a particular person for 20-30 years.
Yeah.
And once he gets in, it is like a termite. He won't get out. Or she.
What about rate of interest on loans?
Sir, the problem is that rate of interest ideally should be brought down. But you see, today I was going through the statistics of inflation. The inflation seems to be hardening. This is a very paradoxical situation that we are in. No textbook in economics is able to give a solution for this. On one hand, we have demand collapsing. And there is an inflation, especially food inflation, is creeping up. So I don't know whether the headroom available for RBI to soften interest rates any further exists. But ideally, that would be a function of your fiscal deficit. Ideally, that would be a function of raising revenues
Let me ask you this. If I were to take a loan in America from a bank, now
Yes.
Ramesh is here, I don't think I have to pay more than 2% interest.
Yes.
Typically, Dr. Swamy, it's prime plus 1 or 2, prime plus something, but prime is zero, near zero in America today.
Yeah.
In here, it is 12% prime rate, prime lending rate.
Finally, it may be 10.5 to 11 or 12, depends on which bank and where it is.
Yes.
MRV, even if I borrow unsecured loan for business, it's 10.
Yes, yes.
So, therefore, how can you encourage investment if your rate of interest is so high? It's not there. You know, I know many people in America, particularly Indians living there, who take a loan from American banks, come to India and lend that money. As NRIs, they can come with any amount of money, and then they privately lend out money. So, without doing any work, from 2% to 10%, that means 8% without doing any work.
Yes.
So, this is called interest arbitrage. So, we want to, and fixed deposit is going lower and lower every year.
Yes.
So, the household savings, which used to be, you know, a huge amount of 34-35% of GDP, today has come down to 29.
The latest figure suggests 21.
21, imagine.
Yes.
What a collapse.
It's a collapse.
So, I mean, I'm surprised that the finance ministry doesn't understand these things. All they can think of is green shoots and V-shape recovery. They don't tell me whether I'm on this part of the V or part of
MRV, a fifth point. Fifth point.
No, I finished the fish point with judicial and administrative reforms.
Yes.
Okay.
And I had suggested
that's not an easy task.
Sir, but 6 years is too long a period to have started something concrete. Now, the people are demanding some balance sheet after 6 years of run. Now we are in the 7th year.
Correct.
Now I'm saying, sir, you know, when I was in my first year of articles in CA, in one of my companies I had gone, they had a lot of bad debts, bad stock, everything. And they didn't know what to do. And in 1 quarter, they had fire. The MD started debiting everything in the books and cleaned it off in one go. And in that, he said, everything he blamed it on the fire. And he said, look, because of the fire, I had to write off. Because of the fire, I claimed it. And because of the fire, this I did. COVID
oh my
is
God.
also,
Oh my God, I thought, but it's become an act of God.
No, COVID is an excellent opportunity also. Every crisis is an opportunity.
Yeah,
Doctor, you will agree with your sagacious way that every crisis presents with us with an opportunity. 1991 presented us with an opportunity also. There was a crisis, and that if you leverage, you get an opportunity.
Same thing with the Green Revolution. It came.
Yes. So when they did not give us rise in 1965, rise and wheat, we said, okay, we start doing this, and we did it. So and nuclear bomb also, we said we will do our own when they did not give us this technology. We developed our own indigenous technology. So every crisis is an opportunity. Looked at it from a different angle. So this is the time where we have to push in for massive administrative reforms and judicial reforms. Like for instance, the way it is looking at, Supreme Court is now no longer going to have this physical hearing.
Yes.
And they are already thought about virtual hearing in from say at least 1 year down the line. We may never think about a lawyer, Supreme Court senior advocate going and presenting himself in the court and thereby dictating the proceeds of the court. It could be somebody sitting in Tirunelveli, wearing his jacket and appearing before the lordships in virtual time. So point I'm making is that this is an opportunity to do some extraordinary reforms and pass it on COVID. COVID gives you that, gives that shoulder to you. And one of the biggest thing for starters, let me tell you that why not make IAS officers' children go to government schools? No, you have an excellent document on the new education policy where people are debating whether it should be Tamil, Telugu, all sorts of things. Yeah. But I want government employees per se send their children to government schools. The moment you do this, sir, my view is that a substantial part of the debate will get compressed because the toilets will be clean, water will flow, teachers will be present, the buses will work, the bells will ring, the ayahs will be there, the canteen will work, everything will be smooth, and it requires no cost. It is out of budget, out of revenue, no need. Only thing we require is one small, and this is, I have tested with at least 3 or 4 senior advocates. They say this is absolutely a legal proposition. Even Allahabad High Court seems to have passed a judgment favoring this idea.
There's one question.
So go ahead.
There is one question from the viewer, Dr. Swamy. His name is Sandeep Sanwal. Actually, he's a small business owner in the manufacturing. It's a very interesting question. They say the government doesn't subsidize any reuse. I mean, like, what we call refurbished machines. They put enormous tax. They don't allow it to a refurbished machine to come. It could help save a lot of cost for the manufacturer, and at least to help fulfill the whole thing. But there is a lot of thing against it.
Right. Well, I want to ask you in the remaining time one other question. We have $2 trillion dollars in foreign bank accounts illegally.
Must be. I have not audited it. So I have to be careful with you.
Do you know a method of getting it back? Because we had promised it and we have not done it.
I would like to hear from you, Doctor. How is your views on this? Because but before you go into that, just one small point I would like to tell you. The first cabinet decision was to appoint this Supreme Court monitored committee on the black money. Doctor, it has no seat, no address, no stenographer, no machine, no computer, nothing. It is a virtual office. Unfortunately, it has decayed into nothing.
That's right.
But now I would like to hear from you, Doctor.
Jethmalani had a petition.
Yes.
Jethmalani died, so the thing is, in moribund condition. But let me tell you one thing. The Egyptians were able to get the money of Mubarak.
Yes.
The Libyans were able to get the money abroad, stashed away abroad of Gaddafi. The Filipinos were able to get from Marcos.
Yes.
Why can't we get the money of our politicians to begin with abroad?
Yes.
This is because we are not using the method that they have used, which is they have gone under the UN Convention of 2005. Convention on United Nations Convention on it is called Convention on Illegal Money Deposits Abroad, where the United Nations has said that if you pass a law in a country nationalizing all accounts of Indian citizens in the following 70 countries, which are known as money laundering countries.
So tax havens.
Tax havens. Then we as the United Nations will then enable you to get that entire money.
Yes.
And I checked this with Fali Nariman, and he in fact wrote an article also saying that this is the way, and this is the way they have done it in Egypt. They have done it in Gaddafi's, Libya, most of the
Philippines also.
The Americans, of course, used another method.
Yeah.
Which I don't know whether we have the gumption to do. They one day got information that about 5,627 accounts are there in the Union Bank of Switzerland. So the Union Bank of Switzerland has a a branch office in Washington. So the Internal Revenue Service and the FBI went and asked them that the chairman to give us these accounts. These are the they are American citizens. You have to give it. They said, no, this is secrecy violation. We can't do it. That evening, the FBI arrested the main officials of the bank. And 2 days later, Switzerland gave them all the accounts that they wanted. So that's one way of doing it. We also have many Swiss banks here. But I'm saying that this is going too far. I don't know whether we have reached that level of toughness. But this one we can do. It's a UN resolution.
It is called STAR program, Stolen Asset Recovery Program, and this is what governments, as you said, the not so muscular governments can definitely fall upon this as an alternative. Of course, the first one, what you suggested, what America did, we can also do it. And in fact, one of the HSBC accounts holder in in 2013 and 14. Before Mr. Kejriwal became Mr. Anarchist, he in a press conference released a document of a 131 statement and made by a person under the income tax when his house was raided. So he said some 5 crores of some money was given by somebody who walked into his house to purchase his house. So that was the cash. That was the explanation for the cash. And where did it go? He says, look, there was one guy from HSBC. I called him. So that guy comes in, takes money from here. Money from Delhi is credited into his account in Switzerland in yuan or yen or euro or whatever currency or dollar, whatever you want, within 30 minutes. This is called real retail banking. That was on oath given by a person to the income tax department. HSBC was the bank involved. Everybody knows it, but no action. As you said, RBI does not look at it. Our financial intelligence unit doesn't look at it. Our finance ministry doesn't look at it. Money laundering ED doesn't look at it. So everybody, looks at it in a suspended sense of disbelief how it happens. So if there is a will, doctor, as you said, there are an innumerable number of ways. Whether it's 2 trillion, 1 trillion, $1, that's a matter that we can come about later. But definitely there is money. There will be money. And we can definitely get at it. It's not
one place you can't get from. And that's where everybody is now shifting their money. That's Macau.
Probably because the Chinese are holding that.
I'll help you. Unless you're friends with them.
Sir, doctor, in our philosophy, you say Samadana Beda Danda. Sometimes we have to add Dr. Swamy as the fifth alternative. Sam Dan Bed then ho gaya, so you can use Dr. Swamy and get it done also.
So a couple of quick rapid fire questions because they're coming through in this thing. So first rapid fire question: how do you fix the exchange rate? This is a question from Australia.
Oh, I agree.
How do we fix it in such a way that it is advantage? Yeah, it's for you. I mean, either of you can take it.
Oh, what about you? You want to answer?
No, doctor, you answer that.
Well, the exchange rate is only decided by demand and supply for foreign exchange. It's got nothing to do with the economy. The economy may be strong or weak. And in our case, we have not used the demand and supply route at all. What we have done is a fixed basket of currencies, and the weighted average, we can work out the value. So it has got pounds in it, it's got dollars in it, it's got a German mark in it, and so on. So there's this package. I don't know, this was invented during the UPA rule. I mean, the Mrs. Gandhi's Congress rule. And that is still carrying on. In my opinion, we should go back to fixed exchange rates till we become a developed country. And I would say that as of now, the exchange rate should not be more than 35 rupees to a dollar. And you must remember in 1977, the dollar rupee rate was 7 rupees to a dollar. Why did it decline? Because people were throwing money in rupees to get dollars abroad, and that affected the foreign currencies in the basket, and that's how this thing has gone up to 70, from 7 to 70.
Okay. Doctor, two sentences here. Just a second.
Yeah.
China fixed it at 8.28 to a yuan, to a dollar, between 95 and 2006. And that is how the spectacular rise happened.
That's right.
Now, second thing is, as you said, that it has nothing to do with the economy. Even when we are registering minus 23.9%, the rupee has actually appreciated by 2%. So it has done better vis-a-vis the dollar.
Right. Okay. Second, MR, this question is for you.
Yeah.
This lockdown, prolonged lockdown, and fear mongering by media and all of this thing, it has impacted the economy. So, I mean, where does the responsibility lie?
in terms of where does the responsibility lie on what?
How do we, because this lockdown is definitely impacted, whether it's reasonable, unreasonable, whether the fear of spread of COVID, right? At the end of the day.
Short intervention of mine.
Okay.
Modi should have said that I am giving you 4 days, not 4 hours, to comply with the lockdown. The entire the disruption took place when he said tonight midnight at 8 o'clock at night, and otherwise the lockdown would have been so bad.
Yeah, there's another myth. There's this other constant question that is getting debated on all. You call it every channel that even speaks a little bit of economy. First, MRV can take, and then Dr. Swamy can jump in. Here's this printing of money pegged against the amount of gold you have. What is this concept? Because it beats me. Because if you look at America, we have printed 4 trillion so far. Maybe we'll print another couple of trillion. The way we are going. So, MRV, your start, and then Dr. Swamy can jump in.
See, sometimes people say Dr. Swamy says this, Dr. Swamy does this, but why don't you do this? My answer to them is Dr. Swamy, I am not Dr. Swamy. Okay, so if America does something, America can print any amount of dollar because there is a constant demand for dollar. And that will ensure there is no run on the dollar. Whereas Indian rupee, if you start printing, of course, you can use this printing up to a point. That's a solution, you can have it. But you can't print like trillions of dollars like what the Americans have done. And even in America.
What I'm saying is proportionately. I'm not saying you go print $4 trillion worth of money.
We can't. That is what you can have a small amount.
By connecting it to foreign exchange. This is internally.
Yeah.
I build a road and pave them by printing notes.
Yeah, that you can do. That you can do, sir. That should not be a problem.
If there is a demand shortage in the country, then printing notes is the only way.
Sir, that can be done, but provided you have all the other mechanics right in terms of delivery till the end point of your. That is the problem here. If you print notes and allow this bridge like your Madurai flyover pending for 15 years, then you will have a run on the rupee because your inflation will run amok. Again, on the St. Thomas Mount side, you will know it. For the last 10 years, there is a 400-yard connectivity pending, which keeps a huge railway track redundant between Velachery and St. Thomas Mount. These are two things that is eyesores in Chennai, wherein crores and crores of money have been sunk, but you have not started using it. This is sheer administrative apathy. On top of it, judicial unwarranted inactivism. Unless you are sure about these two things, printing notes, doctor will agree with me, will be suicidal. If not suicidal, at least it will be counterproductive.
Well, we'll take a rain check on that.
Okay.
I don't agree with you.
Jagdishji, go ahead. Jagdishji.
Swamy, first of all, the students community are still very upset that the NEET and JEE has not been postponed by the government. And we all know the circumstances and how it did not happen and how the review petitions.
Yes. Well, you see, the issue is this. The students came to me very late in the day, almost the weekend before the thing was going to be done. And they had gone with some lawyer, and that lawyer, the key question was raised is that this is government policy. How can you oppose it? The same question is put to me in 2G. That this is government policy if they want to lower, sell spectrum at the 2001 prices in 2008, the year 2008. So I said, yes, government policy, I cannot challenge in court unless I can show there is arbitrariness, unreasonableness, and a bias. And I said that this is arbitrary. How did you decide 2008? Please tell me. In 2008, it should be 2001. In 2001, it was decided by an auction. So why 2008, it shouldn't be decided by an auction? especially since the demand has gone skyrocketing for spectrum. And that is the argument which they accepted. Same thing with Ram Setu. It's a policy decision to have Setu Samudra project. I said, okay, but there is, if you want to put a faster route from from Tuticorin to Calcutta, you don't have to go by ship. You can put a railway line along the coast, and that's much cheaper. And there was a planning commission project which showed that it was only 1/6 the price of a Setu Samudram project. And on that basis, I won. It's not because I said, Ramji, I cannot, I did use that argument. But the main argument I said is that this policy is, the exchequer is being misused. So therefore, these students should have argued that this is not a question of policy, it's a question of our existence. How do we go when there's monsoon, so on? These are the arguments that should have been. So I think my problem is the Prime Minister is not willing to listen. He doesn't even take my phone call on this issue. And I've tried, and I don't blame him, because I'm coming at the last minute and saying, now do it as if I run the show. I mean, no administration can function if any member of parliament comes at the last minute and says, change your policy. This should have been done much earlier. I should have been told in the beginning, in the early part of August. Then I'm sure that I could have built a thing. The second part is the chief ministers could have all said, no, we can't implement it. But not one chief minister. I talked to many of them, but not one chief minister agreed to say to the government of India, we can't implement it. So there are lots of wheels within wheels. I can't tell these young people just now, but I'll say that I've tried my best. You should have come to me earlier, but I'm even then I did. They said, you must contact the Prime Minister. I contacted the Prime Minister. I knew that he could never agree because they had taken a decision. The Education Minister told me how much discussion that had taken place and how they came to this conclusion. So I feel bad for the students, but there's nothing. I'm helpless in this matter. So the students keep asking me to call up the Prime Minister again. I said, when his mind is made up, I don't think it's pointless for me to even try to talk to him about this issue. Your voice is not coming. You're muted.
Thank you, Dr. Swamy, for again giving further clarification on the students' issue. I would now request Arvind Chaturvedi to wrap up the program.
Now, before we wrap up the program, I just want to have one observation on the main subject of the today, that is economy. Dr. Swamy, only last week, one report has been released by London School of Economics. They have a Center for Economic Performance, and they have done a survey in India among the urban people, on maybe more than 8,500 people. And so the observations are, in the post-COVID era in the whole world, there is only 15.5% unemployment. That means people who have lost their jobs. And 20.1% people who have zero work in the last 3 months, that is May, June, and July. And in India, this figure is 52%.
That's right.
52% have not had any work during the COVID time, and no pay, no work. The second thing is they have said about inequality. They have said the top quartile of the income, quartile is 25%, top quartile of the income, their share has gone up, their income share has gone up post-COVID by 16%. That means rich people are not affected. It is only the poor people who are affected. Now, in the when you ask this question to MRV, that what should be the policies or the comments on the stimulus package. So I think the stimulus package was not drawn in keeping these things in mind, that what will happen to the urban employed people, what will happen to the inequality, and how to handle these things.
Well, first of all, I don't believe that London School of Economics has done a fair survey.
These had 2 Indians in it.
The Indians, you can have and he will say that Bengalis are responsible for the Bengal famine because they eat too much rice. So that's not criteria. I would like to see what is the framework. How do they? What is the sample size in which part?
8,546, if I'm correct.
But I want to know. Listen, I'm also I got a degree in statistics. You must remember. I've done sample survey. I've actually gone physically along with a bunch of people for national sample survey to see how surveys are conducted. So I'm saying that I will not go by that. I would like to do that kind of survey in India by our own agencies, which I can supervise. Here, I don't know what is the academic honesty in this survey, because it's a well-known left-wing outfit which is all the time looking for some way to run down India. Anything you want to say?
No, sir, nothing. You have added it up. You summed it up so brilliantly. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
Okay, with this we come to the end of this program. Thank you, Dr. Swamy, very much. Thank you, MRV, my co-host Jagdish Shetty and Ramesh Swamy, and the technical team headed by Ashish Shetty, Swaminathan, Gadgi Rakesh, Tejas, Ishwar Iyer, and Vishal. It was a very important topic. We touched upon economy, and of course, we also had Dr. Swamy's comment on drug connection to Sushant Singh Rajput case. All these important issues. Thank you very much for bringing these issues to the table. And next Sunday, again, we'll meet at 8 p.m. to with Dr. Swamy and a new topic, Indian Standard Time. And this is just to remind the viewers, those who want to join Virat Hindustan Sangam, they can go to our website, vhsindia.org, and join the Virat Hindustan Sangam. There's a 5-point program which we have. Thank you again. All the viewers, thank you for joining us. And next Sunday, we'll meet again. Thank you. Jai Hind. Namaskar.
Jai Hind. Namaste.